Summer is here, and so is the heat. Oh my goodness, is the heat. Do you know what to do if your power goes out? Are you prepared? The City of St. George's Energy Services Department provides safe, affordable, and reliable energy to approximately 28,000 residential and commercial customers. They also offer 24-hour dispatch service for maintenance and repairs to existing customers. Renee Fleming has worked for the City of St. George for several years, serving in the position of Water and Energy Conservation Coordinator since 2003. In this position, Renee has developed programs designed to educate as well as provide rebate programs to help customers afford to implement water and energy efficiency into their homes and their businesses. Today, you'll learn what to do to keep your energy costs down. Thank you. How to conserve power and what to do in a power emergency. Please help me welcome Renee.
Thank you. So hopefully I cover everything that I was just told I'm going to. We'll see. I'm certainly happy to, oh, maybe that won't work. I can take this off and go this way. I can multitask. There we go. So we are a municipal utility, meaning we're part of your community. We, as opposed to an IOU, which is an investor-owned utility. So we are part of your community. We have been since 1942. We were the Water and Power Department, and in 2002 things were split up and we became an Energy Services Department, and we're separate now from the water, but still part of the community. As mentioned, we have roughly 28,000 metered accounts. We serve about 65% of the city of St. George. The rest of the city is served by Dixie Power, a cooperative that we try to work as well as we can together to provide good service, especially to some of the commercial customers that need redundant service, so that we're meeting all of our customer needs. Many of our employees live in the community, and it's important to us as employees to be a part of and make our community better. The picture on this slide is our line crews working at the Sun Bowl to refurbish the lighting there. One of the things that we do without extra cost to the city, but something that does benefit the city. Recently, our long-term director, Phil Solomon, retired. He'd been with the utility for nearly 30 years and had a ton of institutional knowledge and was very innovative. But he left us, jumped ship, deserted us. However, he also helped to train those that have tried to step up to the plate, and one of them being our new director, Lori Mangum. Lori comes to us, she's got her degrees in electrical transmission from Bismarck State College, and she has over 30 years of experience within the utility, much of that with the City of St. George. She started in our warehouse as an inventory specialist. Decided when around 2000, we had a major change within the electrical industry and resource management became critical. Took it on to try to learn how to handle that resource management. We split up, became the Energy Services Department in 2002, and she became the resource power manager at that time. Learned a lot about how to get power into our community, how to make sure contracts worked smoothly. Learned so well that Gainesville Regional Utilities, one of the largest utilities in Florida, took her. And so she spent a couple of years there, but when Philip announced his retirement, she was offered the job to come back and is now our director, and also very innovative and coming up with some really good ideas. So she's got a focus that she would like us as staff to do. She would really like us to focus on our customers. And I think this is a good focus because our customers they are ratepayers, they who pay our salary, they are the reason we all have jobs and we all like our jobs. So focusing on the customer is a good focus. Some of the things that we're trying to do is make sure our customers can get their questions answered. So Cheryl Navas, who's our front-end manager, she, I'll give you her number, and she will answer your questions. If she doesn't know the answer, she will make sure you get directed to the right person. Thank you. It's the down arrow when we get there. So she, even if it's something that is not related to energy, she will find out who within the city you might need to speak to and can point you in that direction. So if you do have a question and you're not sure where in the city to turn, especially if it's energy or water related, call Cheryl. Her number is 627-4800. It's our main Water and Energy Services Administration line, and she will make sure that you get pointed in the right direction. We also want to provide more information to our customers. We've got a Facebook page and a Twitter account to make sure that our customers are aware of some of the jobs that we do, and so that they know that, because you really like your energy when you, or your power when you know you turn the light switch on. I think most people don't really care how it gets done, just so long as when they turn the switch on, the light's on. But from our perspective, I would like you to know how skilled our line crews are, how skilled our generation techs are, and how important they are to making sure that when you flip the switch, the lights come on. We also want to improve our response time with respect to outages or trees that need trimming, those kind of things that need to get done. So we're working to focus on that too. We're also working on our education initiatives. So one of the things we've started is offering energy efficiency workshops. So our second one is tonight, and we will, it's from 6:30 to 7:30 at the Water and Energy Building up at 811 East Red Hills Parkway. And we're going to discuss appliances, which ones in your home use the most energy, how can you purchase appliances that will use the least amount of energy but do the job that they need to do. We had one a few months ago on air conditioning, what you need to do to get serviced so that your air conditioner runs as efficiently as possible. Also, what if you're looking for a new air conditioner, what kind of things should you look for? And also on our Facebook page, as I mentioned earlier, we're trying to get information out. Some of the things that we're doing are taking pictures of the work that the crews do. On this one, they're rebuilding a line, and for most people wouldn't realize that the hot sticks that they have in their hands and the fire retardant shirts they're wearing are required because in this case they're doing the work hot, meaning those lines are energized. And the reason they're doing it this way, it is a higher risk. We have very safe crews, but they're doing it to avoid a customer interruption while they rebuild the line. So we'd like our customers to know how hard those that work in our community or on our lines work to keep the power flowing. And also on the city website, we also have a place you can click for a citizen message. And depending on what the message is that you want to get to, it'll get forwarded to the right person who can answer that question too and get back to you in a timely manner. Okay, so the next one we're ready for. Yep. So as a utility, though, we do have issues that have to be addressed. And many of these issues that we need to address are issues that utilities on a national level are addressing. Transmission costs are rising, in some cases phenomenally, greatly rising. The transmission costs are what we as a utility pay to bring power in from the outside as far as power lines go. It is also what we as a utility pay in gas pipelines because we have a natural gas generation facility, so we have to pay transmission in the pipeline to bring gas in to run our facility. Those costs are rising. As an example, over the last 2 years, they've risen 40% roughly, which is about $1.2 million in a cost to us that has gone up. And it's not something we have a lot of control over. It's those that own the transmission operations that control it, and they're usually overseen by utility commissions or, in some cases, the federal government. Rooftop solar, boy, is that a game changer. Since October of 2014, nationally, 8,000 megawatts of rooftop solar have gone on within the nation. And certainly within our community, we are seeing that kind of growth as well. In 2014, we had 14 new installs, bringing our total to 47 customers, business and residential, that have put solar on their rooftop. To date, so we're halfway through the year, not quite halfway through the year, we've had 23 installs, and I have 10 in progress. And actually, I've got another one going on tomorrow, so tomorrow will be up to 24. So we are seeing a huge growth in rooftop solar, good and bad. And I'm a solar proponent. I live off the grid. I know solar works. It's a good way to get electricity, but I also know it works when the sun shines. So as a utility, we still have to provide full capacity to those solar customers, because if the sun isn't shining, they want to have full power. So we still have all of those costs related to providing capacity for those customers. However, because they're generating a significant amount of their power, our revenue from those customers is decreasing. So we are not necessarily able to collect all of our costs that are associated with the capacity that we need to have to provide for those customers. What can end up happening is that those customers are subsidized by those who don't have solar. So we are trying to respond to that at a time before it becomes a real issue for us. We're being proactive and trying to determine what is the best rate or fairest way to make sure our solar customers can take advantage of the solar, a great natural or renewable resource for our community, but also pay their fair portion of the capacity costs that we as a utility incur to provide them power whether the sun is shining or not. So that's something that we're working on. We also know our workforce is aging. And 28% of our employees will be eligible to retire in the next 5 years. And having just lost Philip, we understand that when one of our employees goes, so does a lot of institutional knowledge. So we're doing a lot to get our employees cross-trained so that when one goes, there's somebody that can step up to the plate. We also are focusing a lot on employee training to make sure that we are staying up with industry trends, with safety, the current safety practices, so that we're staying competitive. And also because we do want to continue to retain our employees. Many of our employees have 15, 20, and some now, as I said, 28% are eligible to retire, some of that because they've had 30 years with the city shortly, some of it because they're getting to 62. But we want to continue to have a department where our work environment is such that we have long-term employment, that employees want to stay with us. So keeping our employment stable is as important as keeping our rates stable. And rate stability is important. Businesses need to know what their rates are going to be so they can plan how to handle their bottom line. So we as a utility want to make sure that one of their biggest costs, which are their power rates, are pretty stable. So we work hard to make sure that we are planning out into the future what our costs will be, and also so that each year as we go through the budget planning process, we can say to the council, yes, we do need a rate increase, or no, we don't need a rate increase, and it's something that can be looked at every year. For this year, we are not going to ask for a rate increase, and it'll be about this time next year when you'll find out if we are asking for a rate increase. And as far as planning goes, we are looking at things pretty in detail for out to the next 10 years. Okay. So one of the last things I want to talk about is our resource mix, because I do get a lot of questions on where do we get our power from. So this is our current resource mix. As you can see, a lot of it is coal. Coal is a great baseload product. You turn that coal-fired plant on and it runs pretty much 99% of the time. So it's a great baseload product. It's a fossil fuel, so it has some environmental concerns, especially with older coal plants. So that's something that we need to balance. And what we're seeing happening now is that a lot of older coal plants are being retired, but some of the newer technology is making coal a bit cleaner. And coal is being retired and in a large part being replaced with natural gas. Another fossil fuel, but it has less environmental emissions than the coal does. So as you can see right now, the little orange sliver at the very top is what we are exposed to the market. We buy and sell power on an hourly basis. It's a bit like the stock market as far as things can change. So we try to make sure as we plan, looking at the day ahead and the hours ahead in the day, that we are within 5% of the amount of power we'll need, either over or under, so that we either are selling just a small amount of power into the market or buying just a small amount of power from the market. Because we can't control market prices, And also because we don't know exactly where it's coming from as far as what does it do to our resource mix. Is it coal? Is it a renewable? That kind of question. But it also limits our risk if we can limit it to 5% or less. And our system control operators that are up there are they're 24/7 handling this on an hourly basis, making sure that we have just exactly what we need for that hour. Okay, the next slide, please. So the next one is the 2016 outlook. We will have a little bit less coal in 2016. On the right-hand side, those are megawatt hours that we need in order to provide power for this community. So we've dropped about 10,000 megawatt hours of coal, and we're replacing that quite a bit with natural gas. We have an 80 megawatt natural gas facility out at the Mill Creek Industrial Park. And even in the wintertime, you'll see in 2016, we're starting to be able to run our Mill Creek in the wintertime. That's because the capacity in the pipeline has been increased, and we've purchased capacity to be able to run in the wintertime. It's decreasing the amount of coal we have, it's increasing the natural gas, but also that hydro strip. We have, in the summertime, about 25% of our fuel or power is coming from hydro. We get it from the Colorado River Storage Project, which is Lake Powell and the Glen Canyon Dam. We also get it from Jordanelle Hydro up in the northern part of the state, which is a certified low-impact hydro. And we get it from a little bit of hydro at the Pine Valley Hydro Plant, just something here locally. So we have a fair amount of hydro, and hydro is a great renewable because you can count on it, unlike the sun or the wind, which is intermittent. Hydro is fairly stable with the power that you can get from it. We also have solar in that renewable resource mix too. It's a small amount right now. We have a megawatt of solar behind the customer meter, plus we've got our little small SunSmart facility with 250 kW of power. SunSmart is a jointly owned with the city and Dixie Power. It was something that we did together, but it also does provide us locally controlled renewable power. And then the next slide, please. So here we go to 2018, and our coal has dropped even more because we're changing our resource portfolio, trying to keep it diversified, as well as trying to make it as economical as possible, and also taking into account the environmental impacts that we're responsible for because we're a utility. Natural gas, you can see, is continuing to grow. And I didn't talk at all about diesel, but I should. We have a really small amount of diesel that we have internal generation for diesel, but that is primarily used for backup. If we need just a little bit of extra power because we're hitting an exceptionally high summer peak, we can turn the diesels on. Or we also use them in what is called reserves, meaning that we get paid if they're needed to be run by somebody else, and we sell that power. So we can make a little bit of money that way. We do operate those under an air permit. So there is a certain amount of hours that we can operate those diesels, but they are a good backup in the event that we need it. And one thing that we're looking at is perhaps changing some of those diesel engines, which are fairly small, to natural gas, and that would give us more flexibility with more hours to be able to run them. And natural gas comes up quickly, just like diesel does, and natural gas has got fewer emissions. So that's our resource power mix. And one more thing I wanted to talk about is what to do if we do have a power outage. We do have our 24/7 dispatch office, which is where you should call if you've got an outage, and that number is 435-627-4835. They are there all the time. If it's an outage, you'll probably have to leave a message because they are busy working with whichever crews are responding to the outage, and they can't necessarily pick up the phone. But they will try to pick up the phone or return calls when the outage is over. But it's good if you call that number, leave your name, a phone number, and your address. Because maybe your outage is different than something that might be going on somewhere else in the system, and we'd want to know where it is. You can also post to our Facebook page. I have the opportunity to have a smartphone, and one of those reasons is in case we get something posted to the Facebook page, I'm able to get back with people pretty much whenever on that. So that's another way that you can communicate with us. So, and that is my presentation, although I realize I'm done a little bit early, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Yes, sir.
I noticed in your charts, all the, on the megawatts or whatever it is,
Mhm.
are all about the same. So were you planning on any growth over those years?
It does grow, and maybe we grow at about maybe 3 to 5% in power needs a year. So, and with the downed economy, our growth went backwards. But the economy is getting better, and our growth is now back in the more positive area. And we are looking out to 2025, so we're not only planning just in the short term, but we're looking out to 2025. Things like our Colorado River Storage Project. We've had that since the 1960s. It's a 50-year contract, and we're now renegotiating that so that when it runs out, we can still get power from Lake Powell. So that is something that we're working on.
I have one more question.
Sure.
On that. And that is, I just saw a show the other day that Lake Powell's water level is getting
Mhm.
dangerously low to the point where they may not be able to produce power. Is that going to affect you?
It can affect us because the Colorado River Compact has been renegotiated. So as the level in Lake Powell drops, not only do water users have to take less power, but depending on where it drops to, they may have to produce less power. And if they produce less power, then all of us that get contracts from it will get less power from it too. So it does have the potential to affect us. Ro? Go ahead, Ro.
I was wondering, excuse me, how the solar panels out beyond Bloomington,
The SunSmart.
are they being sold now, or how is that program going?
The program is going, okay, so this is a little complicated of a question. SunSmart has a 250 kW capacity, and when we built it, it was very competitive with putting rooftop solar on your home at $5,000 for a kilowatt. That was really competitive. That was 2009. Solar prices have dropped, and I'm seeing that solar can go on your home for much less than that. So it is hard for people to want, unless they live in, for instance, in a homeowners association that does not allow solar, it's hard for them to make the investment in our SunSmart farm versus putting it on their home, because on their home they also get the federal tax credit, and for SunSmart you don't. But it is still a locally renewable resource. We have control over it, and it is something that we don't have to pay extra transmission for because it gets picked up right there at the Bloomington sub. It can either go to us or our partner in it, Dixie Power. And we would at some point like to expand it, but we've got to get the funding for it. Yes.
So are coal-fired plants still getting built?
They are having right now a hard time getting permitted, but there are new coal-fired plants in the pipeline, and one of the permitting problems is how to adapt the best clean coal technology. So I think that they are slowing down in how fast they come on, but I think we will see a limited amount of new coal-fired plants as they're able to take and make use of the cleanest coal type of technology.
I noticed you didn't talk about wind power. Is there any new wind turbines coming on that you'd be connected with?
Not that we would be connected with wind. So as I said, solar power is intermittent. It's available when the sun shines. Wind power is even more intermittent as far as trying to schedule when it will be online. So it's still a renewable resource and a good resource, but it often comes online at night when our peak or our demand for power is the lowest, and it's also really hard for us to schedule it. And we don't have, in our direct area, we don't have a good resource for commercial wind. I know Hurricane gets a lot of gusty winds, but that doesn't make for a good commercial wind product because it doesn't blow consistently about 10 miles an hour over several hours. It's a little too gusty. So for us to have wind, we'd have to be wheeling it, transmitting it from another source, which adds cost to it, and also making it difficult to schedule is another reason that we haven't looked at wind. And one reason we do look at solar, because we do get a lot of sun in our area, so we can make it a locally available renewable. Yes.
What are the biggest power saving tips?
Biggest power saving tip is look at your air conditioner. If it's more than 10 years old, consider replacing it. And if you're going to do that, do two things when you replace it. Buy the most efficient one you can afford, which is the SEER, S-E-E-R rating, Seasonal Energy Efficiency Rating, and the Energy Efficiency Rating, the EER. So get the most efficient you can afford and use a contractor that will do what is called the manual J calculations. That means they take into account what the square footage of your home is, how your ducts are designed so that they know how the airflow has to go, and they size your unit appropriately. Because a lot of people say, well, if I need a 3-ton, I'll get a 4-ton because bigger's better. But with respect to air conditioning, that isn't the case, because too large of an air conditioner will be just as efficient as too small of an air conditioner. So make sure it's sized correctly. And then look at your duct work. Have it inspected to see, are your ducts still at the joints sealed? Is there anywhere that you can insulate ducts through, especially in unconditioned spaces, if it goes through the attic or whatever? And make sure your ductwork has been cleaned and is in good service. So air conditioning is your biggest bang for your buck. But beyond that, it would be some of your higher use appliances, and you might be surprised, but it's a lot of the electronics with the Game Boys and the Wiis. And I don't know, my grandkids have a ton of things that get plugged in. And someone I work with, her son moved out when he got old enough, moved out of the house, and her power bill dropped by 1/3 when he took all his electronics with him. So electronics can be a big one. And LED lighting is coming a long way. So if you're considering, especially if it's a light that you use outside, like your porch light that you leave on all the time at night, consider putting an LED bulb in. Yes.
And take this in the spirit intended. You know, we hear Dixie Power and those who have that, and yours are what, 2.5 times or thereabouts higher? Is it your sheer costs are so much more, or explain that to us?
That's a good question. Rates vary, and it is a function of costs. It's how much do we have to pay for power, what is our resource mix, and what do we pay for transmission to get it in. That and what it costs for O&M. So Dixie Power has a different resource base than we do, so their power costs are different than ours. And their utility structure is a little bit different than ours too. So you're right, their kilowatt hour rate is about 5.5 cents a kilowatt hour. That is lower than our 7.5 cents, which is what our low tier rate is. But base charge, you also should look at what your base charges are, because that is part of your power cost too. I'm not sure what Dixie's is, but ours is like $15.65, and then there's your kilowatt hour usage as well. And then we've got Rocky Mountain Power, a really different resource mix, because they cover such a large service territory, and their power rates are very much different than ours. And because I'm going to be moving into the Rocky Mountain Power service territory, I'm going, oh my, they're high. But I think they're still fair. It's just that they have a different set of variables to work with, so their rates will be different too. Yes.
Going back to the rooftop solar, what are the plans to implement any surcharges or anything to solar users? You alluded to that. Can you expand a little bit on that?
We are revising our net metering program, and that will probably go to the council next week. And what we're looking at is we have taken a look at all of our costs associated with capacity. Our transmission costs, both wire transmissions and pipeline transmission for gas, and then our O&M costs. So that's the cost to maintain our system within our community. And we've taken out the fuel costs, because solar does not need any fuel from us, and if they do, they're buying the kilowatt hours. So we're just looking at the capacity component. And just like a commercial customer pays a demand rate based on their demand, we are considering, and this has not gone to the council, and this is something that the council has to approve, so please keep that in mind, adding what is called a solar reliability charge. So based on the size of the solar that they're putting in, then we would charge them a fixed amount each month for us to arrange for capacity. And that would be something that we would adjust each year, so as our fees change and our costs change, that solar reliability charge would change also. And it would also, as I said, be based on the size. So we have solar on from 0.5 kW to 260 kW. Well, the 260 is on commercial. This will really only affect the residential, because our commercial customers already pay a demand as part of their rate tariff. But we still go from 0.5 kW to 24 kW within our residential. So based on the size of the system, that's what their charge would be. The size of the system it's based on, and our capacity costs.
Follow up on that, is there any plans to expand the solar capabilities like they are up in Parowan and Cedar? They're putting in the new solar farms.
We would like to be able to expand our SunSmart to 2 megawatts. That's the size that will fit at that facility. We just want to be able to do it in a financially responsible manner, and right now we just don't have the extra income, and we also want to do it in conjunction with Dixie Power. That way anyone in St. George, whether they're on my system or on Dixie's system, can take advantage of the solar farm.
Thank you.
Okay?
With the cost increases that you've seen over the past few years, especially the past few months, do you have any projections, not to sound scary, of how high it's going to get? Or do you have any?
Boy, if I could predict that, then I wouldn't need to work for the city of St. George. And so I'm afraid I don't have any, at this point I don't. Our transmission providers have not given us anything to indicate in the next 6 months that they're going to be raising costs, but I mean, we only know for the next few months. They can, based on what their costs are, they can change too. So, as I say, we're trying to make sure rate increases are something that are part of the budget process, so that customers can plan on it if they need to. And businesses, I think businesses need to be able to plan on it. And the new budget starts July 1st. So we start about in March of every year working on our budget process. Yes.
Well, and then theoretically, if you get an administration change, all of a sudden coal-fired probably come back pretty strong.
On a national level?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. It could, if the way the winds blow with respect to emissions, that would also affect what could happen with coal plants. So, yes.
Renee, as we move to natural gas, I've just kind of heard that the more we move to that, the decatherms are going to double projected. So what's the city's backup plan? Is it coal? Is it?
Our backup plan is to keep our portfolio diversified enough that if one resource or another becomes very expensive or difficult to get, we can take advantage of other resources. So a few years ago, we were much more heavy in coal, but we have tried to diversify. And some of that diversification, a few years ago, we didn't have Mill Creek, which is our natural gas facility. So that was another diversification of our resources. And we just continue to try to find, keep our resource mix as diversified as possible. So in order to avoid any major changes. Generally speaking though, 2001 was, we'll take that out of the generally speaking, because the industry was really crazy. But generally speaking, it doesn't happen fast. We have enough warning that we're able to adjust to it before a major change has to be made. We could turn the laptop off if that will help, because I don't have any more slides since its battery power is getting low. Okay, well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and, oh, way in the back.
I know that you guys have credit for the solar panel on full groups.
Mm-hmm.
Is it cheaper for you to give a credit to us for that power from solar panels, or is it cheaper to get the power from diversified other sources?
It's cheaper for us to buy it from somebody else, because right now it's a dollar for dollar trade. So let's say that it's during the day and you're generating 100 kilowatt hours during that day. That's more than you really would, but I'm trying to keep numbers where I can do it in my head. But you only need 50. So you're going to send that 50 kilowatt hours you didn't need back to us, and we're going to be your battery backup. And we're going to store that until your solar is offline in the nighttime, and then we're going to give you that 50 kilowatt hours back, and you will have paid nothing to store it with us and put it on our lines and take it back until you start needing more than your 50 kilowatt hours, and then you'll buy some kilowatt hours from us. So for us, it's cheaper if we go and buy it at a wholesale rate than if we just become your battery backup.
So does the surcharge, you said it depends on the amount of power that I'm producing on my house. So is the surcharge going to be based off the kilowatts or the actual system?
The kilowatt capacity of your solar. So if you have a 2 kilowatt capacity, your surcharge will be different than someone who has a 10 kilowatt hour capacity, because probably, or I'm sorry, 10 kW kilowatt capacity. Because generally speaking, if you need a 10 kW on your home, you're a bigger home, a bigger power user, we have to have more capacity for someone, for you, than we might for the person who only puts a 2 kW system on their home, because their power usage is lower, so it doesn't make sense for them to put on an oversized system. So our capacity costs are less for that 2 kW person than for that 10 kW person.
That makes sense. I never thought of it as you guys storing the power. I just thought of it as my neighbors were sucking it from me.
No, and I liken it to the batteries that I have at my house, because I generate more power than I need during the day, but I store it in my batteries, so at night I can still turn the light on and the TV still works. And so that's how we see it, is where your battery backup.
And so if you're the person who's completely off the grid like you are with the batteries,
Mhm.
there's still a surcharge just for the capacity to be?
No, because I have nothing, no utility brings power to me, so they have no, I'm not a capacity component for them, because I am solely on my own. And I have had some customers call me very upset that we're considering a revamp of the solar. And what I tell them is, you do have an option, and that is that you can totally disconnect from the utility. I'm not saying that's the best option, but that is an option. But as long as you need the utility, we have an obligation to provide you full service, the same as we do to the person who lives next door to you and has no solar. And we have that obligation to do it in a fiscally responsible manner to you and the person next door to you. And that's what we're trying to do.
It's not going to be like everybody's rate is going to be extreme. It's not going to be some extreme huge bill that all of a sudden now the solar panel is worthless to me because I'm paying a certain.
Right. Our goal is not to make solar a disincentive. Our goal is just to cover the costs associated with providing capacity for those customers that do have solar. Yes.
If you run your home on inverter and batteries, which I have a home that is solar powered, and then you kept a hookup with you guys, you have a base charge per month, right?
Right.
If you did that, for a customer, that's the lowest priced way that they're gonna run, is with a battery set up and use what power they got, and use yours for their base charge when they get around to it, if they need it. They
Well,
don't need it?
And the base charge, we do have a $15.65 base charge, and that has to cover the costs of meter reading, then the utility department that has the software that generates the bills, mails the bills, does all of the collections with the bills. So that is the primary cost associated with our base charge. So that is why we still need to make sure we're collecting that capacity component for all of our customers, so.
Yeah, but what I was actually saying is, if you walk by my house, and you see I have 1,000 kilowatts or whatever on my roof, would you gonna tack on a charge even though I'm not feeding you, I'm not back feeding you, I'm using you as storage, I'm using my own storage.
But if you are hooked to us, then you still will need us, and we still will have the charge to you as a customer, because you'll still need us, even if you do. We do have customers that put battery backups on, but they still need us as the utility. They still want the wires flowing to their home. They still want the power to be able to go back and forth. And that still there's still a cost associated with that for us as the utility. But if you wanted to be totally disconnected, that's okay too. And as I said, I like solar. I live on it. I know it works. And I know that it's renewable. It doesn't have the emission component that just about any other type of generation does. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. You're welcome. Thank you. Wow. So that was a lot of information. I really love Community Connect. Being new here in this area, I just constantly am learning stuff. So in closing, just want to check, has anybody ever missed a past chamber luncheon or because people like Renee come in with tons of information, you're like, what did she say on that? I didn't have a pen and paper. You can go to our community education channel and view all of our lunches and our presentations on southernutahlive.com. Thank you very much for doing that for us. And thank you again for coming.